Midday sun bore down on Arlington, unflinching and white, burning the stone until it seemed to glow. The tombs stood brilliant, every line of marble alive in the light, carved words gleaming as if etched fresh. Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God. Families pressed closer to the velvet ropes, shielding their eyes, clutching flags and water bottles in the heat. The air shimmered with the weight of silence, silence so thick it seemed alive. On the black mat, the guard moved. Boots cracked against marble. Thud, thud, thud. Each step slow and perfect. 21 paces measured, pivot sharp, pause deliberate. His rifle gleamed in the blaze, stock polished until it caught the sun like a blade. His face never flickered, brim cutting shadow across his eyes. Nothing faltered, nothing ever faltered. Children fidgeted but hushed quickly, sensing the gravity without needing words. A woman leaned to her daughter, whispering, "Watch, this is America's promise." The girl nodded, lips pressed tight, eyes wide. Veterans bowed their heads, hands trembling over caps, some gripping canes, some holding folded flags that smelled faintly of old wood and dust. The silence was perfect, until it shattered. "Is this it?" A man's voice rang out, high and smug. "All pomp, no power." Heads turned sharply. A politician had stepped forward with his entourage, cameras, aides, and swagger. His suit jacket flapped in the wind, his smile confident and loud. He spread his arms, his voice pitched to carry. "They told me this was sacred, but it looks like a show for tourists, a soldier wasting his life walking circles." Gasps broke from the crowd. A veteran in a wheelchair hissed, "Not here, not now." His hand curled around the flag in his lap, its fabric rough, edges worn from years of reverence. The politician laughed, ignoring him, his tone sharper. "All this discipline, all this silence. And for what? A guard? Just a guard?" The guard pivoted again, rifle flashing white fire. His boots cracked down, cadence steady. He did not look left or right. The silence thickened, heavier than the heat. The politician chuckled at the stillness. Does he even breathe? Or is he just a statue in uniform? He turned to his aides, who smirked nervously, cameras hovering like insects. The crowd stirred uneasily. A child whispered, "Mama, why is he being mean?" The mother's lips tightened, but she said nothing. Then the politician moved. He strode forward, ignoring the velvet rope. Its nap brushed his palm as he crossed the line. A murmur ran through the crowd like wind through dry grass. "Don't," someone whispered. "Don't you dare." But he dared. He stepped to the flagpole, its steel surface glinting under the sun. For a moment, the plaza held its breath. Then, smack. His palm struck the pole, a slap loud as a rifle crack. Steel rang under his hand. The flag above quivered violently in the wind, cloth snapping hard as if recoiling in pain. Gasps erupted. A woman's cry pierced the hush. "Respect the flag!" A veteran shouted, "Stand down!" But the politician only grinned, turning to the crowd. "See? Nothing happened. Just a statue keeping watch. Not a soldier. Just a guard." The guard pivoted again, boots punishing the stone, rifle gleaming. His shadow stretched across the marble, long and dark in the blazing sun. The politician raised his chin. "Where's your thunder now? Where's the sentinel's wrath? He's bound by rules, and rules mean nothing to power." The veteran in the wheelchair whispered, voice trembling, "God help him. God help us all." Legendary moment. The guard in profile, rifle catching sunlight like fire, tomb blazing behind him, while before him the flagpole stood stained by arrogance. The politician's hand lingered on the steel, his laughter echoing, cameras clicking like vultures. But the plaza itself seemed to bend toward the sentinel, every head turned, every heart waited. The silence was not weakness, it was a storm holding its breath. And then the politician laughed again, too loud, too proud, his words searing across the hush. "See? Just a guard. And the plaza trembled, waiting for the answer that had not yet come. Clouds slid across the sun, dimming the plaza with sudden shadow. Heat lifted from the marble in waves, but the light grew grey, cold, foreboding. The air changed. Visitors shifted, voices hushed to whispers, as though Arlington itself sensed that something unclean had been done. The politician still lingered at the flagpole, his palm pressed to its steel, as though daring someone to stop him. His aides shuffled uncomfortably, glancing at the veterans whose eyes burned with restrained fury. Cameras clicked, feeding on the moment like scavengers. From his wheelchair near the front, a veteran spoke. His voice cracked, but carried with the weight of decades. "Take your hand off it, son. That pole is not yours to touch. It belongs to the fallen." The politician turned, smug grin widening. "Belongs to me as much as anyone. It's just metal, cloth, and a silent soldier too afraid to speak." He gestured at the guard pacing the mat, boots striking in perfect cadence. "Look at him. Does he notice? Does he care? He's nothing but a mannequin wound up for ceremony." Gasps rustled the crowd. A woman whispered to her child, "Don't listen," pulling him closer. A young man muttered, "God help us," under his breath. The guard pivoted, his rifle angled in perfect time. Click. A sharp metallic sound rang out, the bolt shifting with deliberate authority. It was a sound small in any other place, but here it sliced the silence like lightning. Veterans in the crowd stiffened as though years had rolled back in an instant. Their eyes flicked to the weapon, instinct alive again in their blood. The politician barked a laugh. "Hear that? A toy clicking its parts together? That's the most life we'll get out of him." He looked to the veterans in the crowd, mocking. "Is this your idol? A man too chained to rules to speak for himself?" The veteran in the wheelchair gripped the folded flag in his lap, knuckles whitening, fabric rough against his hands. His voice trembled with fury. "You spit on more than stone when you spit on silence." The politician leaned closer, voice dripping with arrogance. "No, I spit on weakness." He stepped back to the pole, raised his chin, and with slow, deliberate contempt spat at its base. The spittle slid down the gleaming steel, streaking against the light. The gasp that rose from the plaza was like a wound opening. A woman cried out, covering her mouth. A man muttered a prayer through clenched teeth. A veteran's voice cracked, raw and breaking. "That's blood you spit on, not steel." The guard pivoted again, boots striking louder, sharper, echoing like cannon fire. His rifle caught what little sunlight remained, its edge flashing like lightning in miniature. His presence thickened, filling the plaza. A storm gathered in silence. The politician spread his arms wide, turning to the crowd. "See? Still nothing, still silence. Your hero is powerless, bound by rules, rules that crumble before power." His voice grew louder, mocking, almost feverish. "I am the voice of authority. He is stone. I command, he obeys. This is my country, not his." The crowd bristled but held. Still, fear and reverence mingled in their throats. Mothers pressed children closer. Fathers clenched fists, restrained by respect for the ground they stood upon. The veteran whispered, almost pleading, "Hold the silence. Hold it." His flag shook in his hands. The guard's boots hammered stone. Thud, thud, thud. Every step steady, every breath invisible, every fiber of his being a wall against arrogance. His eyes, hidden beneath the brim, never wavered. Legendary moment. The guard framed in half-shadow, rifle blazing in sudden streak of sunlight that pierced the clouds, while before him the flagpole bore the streak of spit like a wound. The politician's figure stood smug beside it, his arrogance burning against the reverence of the crowd. Thunder rolled low across the horizon, rumbling like distant artillery. The wind whipped the flag overhead, cracking cloth so hard it snapped like a whip. The smell of rain pressed close, sharp and metallic, as if the storm itself had drawn near to bear witness. The plaza held its breath. The politician sneered once more, spittle drying on steel. "You worship silence? Then let it choke you." The guard pivoted again, boots slamming marble, bayonet catching light, silence heavier than thunder. The plaza felt it. Something was about to break. The clouds had thickened into a black ceiling over Arlington, swallowing the noon sun and plunging the plaza into grey. The air pressed heavy, charged, the kind of stillness that comes before a storm tears itself loose. The crowd felt it in their bones, the weight of insult, the waiting for judgment. The guard's boots struck the mat with relentless rhythm. Thud, thud, thud. 21 paces, pivot, rifle gleaming. His silence was deeper than the sky, his steps heavier than thunder. But then, the step changed. His foot came down with a force different than before, echoing like a verdict across marble. He broke the line. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A child cried out, "Mama, he left the mat!" Veterans surged upright from their chairs, shock and awe plain in their faces. For generations that black mat was sacred, abandoned only in moments of emergency, and now before their eyes, the guard had crossed it. The politician froze mid-laugh, hands still resting smug on the flagpole. His smirk faltered for an instant, then curled back as a sneer. "So the mannequin moves. What now? You'll scold me with silence?" The guard advanced. His boots hammered marble like drums of war. Thud, thud, thud. Rain began to fall, cold droplets spattering against stone, soaking uniforms and cameras alike. The air reeked of wet earth and the metallic tang of storm. The politician forced a laugh, louder, brittle against the hush. "That's it? You step closer? You're still bound to rules. You can't touch me." But the guard's presence pressed on him like a wall. His rifle was angled across his chest, bayonet glinting each time lightning flashed across the sky. His gloves, soaked now, clenched tight against polished wood and steel. A veteran shouted, voice breaking, "You mocked the flag! You mocked the fallen! God help you now!" The crowd bristled, whispers colliding in waves. Some cried, some muttered prayers, others watched with trembling reverence. The smell of ozone grew sharper, biting their throats. The politician lifted his chin, arrogance cracking. "Do you hear me? I am power. You are performance." His voice wavered as he stepped back from the flagpole, but he raised his arms wide again. "I am the voice of the living. You are chained to the dead." The guard halted one stride from him. Rain streamed from his brim, running in rivulets down his jaw, dripping steady from the steel of his rifle. The silence that followed was unbearable, thicker than the storm, heavier than stone. Legendary moment. The guard framed in a blaze of lightning, rifle across his chest like a blade, bayonet gleaming in silver fire, the tomb glowing pale behind him. The politician stood inches away, his smirk dying, his hand trembling though he fought to hide it. The guard's voice came then, low, raw, heavier than thunder, his first words since the insult began, "Do not touch it again." The sound rang across the plaza, freezing every soul. Veterans gasped, some saluting instinctively. Children clung to their parents. Even the storm seemed to pause, thunder waiting to roll. The politician swallowed, his smirk breaking into something smaller, less certain. Cameras caught the moment, the shock in his eyes, the immovable weight in the guards. The guard took one more step forward, boots striking marble like a cannon, his rifle tilted higher, bayonet flashing in the light. He repeated, slower, sharper, "Do not touch it again." The words were a blade. The plaza felt them cut deep, not into flesh, but into arrogance itself. The politician's bravado flickered. He turned half toward his aides, laughing nervously. "Did you hear that? The statue speaks." But the laugh was thin, and the crowd heard the tremor beneath it. Thunder cracked overhead at last, rolling long and low. The flag whipped so hard on its pole it sounded like a whip striking the sky. Rain sheeted harder now, soaking marble, streaming across the plaza in silver rivers. The guard did not move. He stood tall, rifle steady, silence pressing harder than the storm. The politician was no longer laughing. The storm broke open above Arlington. Rain slashed the plaza in sheets, drumming against marble until it gleamed black. The flag overhead whipped so violently its halyards rang like steel chains against the pole. Thunder rolled like artillery, each crash shaking the air. The crowd pressed back, clutching coats and children, but none dared leave. Their eyes were locked on the confrontation, on the man who had mocked the tomb, and on the sentinel who had broken silence for the first time in years. The guard stood motionless in the downpour. Water streamed off his brim, slid down his face, dripped steady from his rifle. His uniform clung heavy to him, soaked through. But he did not falter. His rifle was angled across his chest, bayonet glinting every time lightning split the sky. The politician's smirk twisted, but his eyes flicked nervously between the guard and the crowd. He shouted louder to cover the tremor in his voice. "What are you going to do? Stand there. I am power. I make the laws you march for." His voice cracked. "You hear me? I am authority." The guard did not answer. Silence pressed harder, a wall more immovable than stone. A veteran lifted his face into the rain, shouting over the storm, "Authority ends at the grave. Honor day does not!" His voice broke, tears streaming with the rain. The politician turned red, fury snapping. He stormed back to the pole and slammed his fist against it. Clang! The sound rang sharp, ugly, carried across the plaza. He hit it again, harder, spit flying with his rage. "This is just metal, this is just cloth, this is not holy." The crowd erupted. Shouts, sobs, prayers. A woman screamed, "Stop!" A man bellowed, "You disgrace the flag!" The guard moved. Boots slammed the marble, echoing like cannon fire. Thud! He advanced one more stride, closing the last distance. Rain splashed high around his step, water exploding like sparks. His rifle rose higher, steel glinting pale. The politician staggered back, dripping, furious, but his bravado cracked. "What makes you greater than me? You're a guard, nothing more." His voice strained to be heard over the thunder, but every syllable sounded small beside the storm. Legendary moment. Lightning poured through the sky, framing the guard in a blaze of silver, bayonet angled like judgment itself, the flag writhing violently above him. The politician stood shrunken in the same light, fist still pressed against the pole he had defiled. The guard's voice came, louder now, heavy as cannon fire. "That pole carries more blood than your office ever will." The words detonated across the plaza, gasps ripped from the crowd, some saluted instinctively, hands snapping to brows even in the pouring rain. Veterans wept openly. A mother held her child, whispering, "Listen, remember this." The politician staggered, lips trembling. He shook his head, trying to smirk, but the mask was gone. His voice was a rasp. It's only steel." The guard stepped closer still, his presence crushing. His brim dripped steady streams, his jaw clenched like iron, his voice fell to a growl. "It is graves, it is coffins, it is fathers and sons lowered into earth, it is mothers who never slept again." His boots struck stone once more. Thud. "And you dare slap it." The storm seemed to pause. Even the flag stilled for a breath, cloth snapping quieter in the wind. The politician's voice failed. His aides lowered their cameras, shame spreading across their faces. The guards stared into him, silence following like a sword. The weight of the words hung, louder than thunder, deeper than rain. The veteran in the wheelchair whispered, tears streaking his weathered cheeks. "Not just a guard, a sentinel." The politician's hand dropped from the pole at last. His head lowered. His voice was a broken whisper, drowned in the storm. "I didn't know." The guard did not answer. His silence was the answer. The storm rolled east, its fury spent. Rain softened to a drizzle, then stopped altogether, leaving the marble plaza drenched and steaming in the pale light. Clouds tore open, and shafu domes. Bits of sun poured down, striking the tomb until it gleamed white and radiant. Mist curled up from the ground, veiling the black mat in drifting silver, as if the earth itself exhaled relief. The flagpole stood wet and trembling, the banner snapping high, cloth dripping jewels of rain. It no longer looked ordinary, it looked alive, defiant, unbroken. The politician stood beside it, soaked and shivering. His hair clung to his forehead, his suit clung to his shoulders, heavy and ruined. He looked smaller now, stripped of arrogance, his earlier laughter washed away. His head hung low, lips trembling, words unsaid caught in his throat. The crowd had not moved. Families pressed close together, veterans bracing on canes, mothers holding children. No one left. No one could. They had seen too much. Tears ran freely, mixing with the rain on their faces. Some stood with hands over hearts, others saluted in reverence. Their silence was deeper now than when the ceremony had begun. The guard stood unmoved at the plaza's heart. Rainwater streamed from his hat brim, his gloves, his rifle. His wool uniform clung to him, heavy, but he bore it as though it weighed nothing. He had not wavered when the pole was struck, when the flag was spat upon, when arrogance had filled the sacred ground. And he did not waver now, when silence became reverence once more. The officer from earlier whispered almost to himself, "I mocked him, called him only a guard, but I see now." The veteran in the wheelchair raised his flag, the folded cloth damp in his hands but warm from his grip. His voice cracked but carried. "This silence is not weakness. It is the sound of every name we will never know, every grave we cannot visit, and he carries it for us all." The politician turned at those words, his lips parted, a broken whisper leaving him. "I didn't know." He raised his face toward the guard, eyes filled with a shame deeper than rain. "I thought it was theater. I thought it was for show." The guard turned his head at last, just enough for his eyes, shadowed but steady, to meet the politician's. His voice came low, final, like stone splitting. "Power is borrowed. Honor is eternal." The words struck the plaza like a bell tolling. The politician staggered, his shoulders collapsing. He lowered himself slowly until he was on his knees at the base of the flagpole he had slapped. His head bowed, rain dripping from his chin onto the marble. Gasps rose from the crowd, not in shock but in awe. Some whispered prayers, others saluted again. Children tugged at their parents' coats, asking no questions, knowing instinctively that they were witnessing something they would remember forever. Legendary moment. The guard stood tall in sunlight, breaking through mist, rifle gleaming, his figure cut sharp against the glowing tomb. At his feet, the politician knelt in tears at the flagpole he had once defiled, while the veteran raised a folded flag toward the sky. The plaza shimmered in gold and silver, steam rising like incense, the air alive with reverence. The guard turned back to his path, his boots struck marble once more. Thud, 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 each step resuming the cadence of eternity. He walked the mat again, rifle tight, posture perfect. 21 steps, pivot, pause. The watch restored. The plaza fell completely silent, every breath drawn slow, every heart stilled. Not a whisper dared disturb the sound of his march. The veteran whispered through trembling lips, "The watch never breaks, not for insult, not for storm, not for arrogance." And the guard's silence gave answer. His boots struck again, carrying the weight of the unknown, carrying the lesson into dawn. Voiceover closed, solemn, etched into memory. Statues do not bleed, rules do not march, but a man bound by honor can carry silence that outlives every empire. Power bows for a season, honor bows for no man. The guard marched on. The watch endured. If this story reached you, remember this: power fades, but honor endures. Share this story so no one forgets that silence and sacrifice speak louder than arrogance. Subscribe and stand with us in keeping watch for the fallen, because respect is not optional, it is owed, always.